guys are doing well. I have another character study for you guys. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably have seen the renders of this project. I marked this project done or complete a long time ago, but I wasn't quick to make a video on it, like a breakdown or anything, because I wasn't entirely happy with how it came out. It was supposed to be a likeness exercise where I tried to get a bunch of references from someone famous, because there's a lot of photos of them online for free, and I would try to sculpt their likeness and try to capture it in a 3D model, but it continues to be one of my biggest flaws. The person I used for reference was Lynn from the band Paris. And at the end of this project, I don't really think I was successful at making it look like her. It was hard. It was very hard. I think the only thing that I kind of got right were her tattoos. Like, that would make her, that's what like made her recognizable, I guess. But yeah, it's something I'm gonna continue to work on. But I noticed that at the end of this revision, this cyberpunk style revision, it looks even less like her. but who gives a flying fuck, right? So expect to see more stuff like this. I think the next person we'll do is Homelander. We voted to have Homelander be the next Twitch project, but seeing as how I'm not sure when I will finish my current Twitch project, I think we'll make Homelander a YouTube project. We'll see. But let's take a look at how this character was created. I think we'll follow the same flow as Eve. So we'll start up here in Zbrush, because once again I'm using the same model or base model from Eve, and this time I can show you guys what I was talking about. I think I mentioned it. I think I mentioned a fucked up elbow that I had to fix with Eve. I didn't fix it on Lynn originally, so this is how it looks, and you can tell it's fucked up in the renders, but not all that much. It can't just be me, right? Because here you have the elbow pit. If that's what it's called, it's probably not, but basically where it bends on the inside, right? And here's our elbow. So not only is it not aligned, you would imagine it'd be like somewhere right here. Not only is it not aligned, it's kind of like offset. Like, we have our elbow way over here. It should be like over here. So fixing that was something that I wanted to do inside of ZBrush here. And here's our revised version. Basically, I came in with a Damien standard brush and just or sculpted these dividing lines. Good lord. Basically like that, just done at a lower intensity. I broke out the old pen tablet to kind of help with this. Making these lines was a little bit of trouble. Up until I realized, you know what, I'm just gonna follow the geometry. Because one thing I wanted to do, like, let's say inside of here, for example, the line goes like this, where we have this peak. I didn't want that at first. I would have preferred it to be, you know, just straight across like this. The issue is, we don't have the geometry layout for that. So it just won't work that way. And the reason is pretty simple. We don't have the ability to just sculpt on any surface. We need points. We need vertices. We need edges. We can't just sculpt on the faces themselves. So when we make this line here, all I'm doing is pushing these little points in. Let's see if we can see it better this way. All these little corner parts, that's what we're pushing in. We're also can push in the lines themselves. One thing we can't do is, let's say, make a line that goes from here to here and here without having it look like absolute garbage, because there is no line here. Let's see if I can draw it out. This may not be necessary. You might be like, okay, yeah, did I get it? But just for demonstration purposes, I would need a line that crosses this way, so that I actually have a line segment that can be pushed down. Otherwise, there is no other way to manipulate just what's on this face, or any fucking face, without having some vertices or edges to manipulate. So, with the layout of this model, I kept finding myself wanting to go straight across, but not being able to, because the geometry just wasn't laid out that way. So I said fuck it, and just kind of started following. I just started following the edge flow there, versus trying to do something like, just turn that down to like a 12. Instead of trying to come across this way, like this looks okay, but you could see the jaggedness and the stepping, and our model is already at 4 million. It's at 4 million polygons, and we're still getting like this low resolution stepping and jagged marks versus these clean marks that we got from just following the geometry, because we are actually pushing down proper points and segments. So I started to do that everywhere, and in some parts like here on the body. This was before I started to do that. So we do have some jagged parts, and you can look here where later on I came back and added more lines that followed the topology. It looks a lot cleaner versus this stuff. piece here that would basically become the housing of the what I ended up calling the vocal apparatus here, was just extruded. At first it was just this part, right? Quick ugly mask for it. Okay. Oops. I took this mask, extruded it, and then I did another quick mask where I took this part and then extruded it inwards, to just kind of create that look. At this point, I wasn't entirely sure what this all was going to look like. I just knew for sure I wanted to build something here, something that had to be modeled and couldn't be painted in, and it would end up being the cables and the cable holders and such. A bit of cybernetic detailing on the face, and that's it. That is it. That is the majority of the work that was done in Zbrush. It's not a lot. It's not a lot, but it did take a minute. Mostly planning and figuring out what we were going to do. I wish I could have sculpted more stuff on the hands. The hands were left a little bit too human-like. So I tried to fix that in substance once we were painting. As far as the clothing goes, I kept the same clothing. Oh god. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I thought about adding some emissive stuff to the clothing, but I was like, you know what, there's enough stuff glowing on this character already. Let's not overdo it. Overall, a pretty quick trip inside of Zbrush. In Blender, I guess you could say we didn't really do a whole lot here either. It was mainly a lot of UV work, because usually what we do after sculpting is we fit the sculpt to the game ready version. But since I had already done that and we didn't make any huge changes, I mean, this is probably as disruptive as we got to the character's form, was extruding this part in the neck. But all of our little detail lines, we require no adjusting for that. And for this part, you can kind of see in the low poly in some views that it does adjust to that. You can kind of see the outline of it, even though it's far less dense. But here's the density of the sculpt, the high poly, and you can see the density of the low poly. Huge difference. But like I said, most of what we did was UV adjusting. And once again, dealing with the elbow, just because we fixed it in ZBrush for the high poly or the sculpt, we still had to come in and adjust the elbow to its new position here for the low poly or the game version. we also worked on the posed version a little bit inside of here. The majority of the posing is done in Zbrush, but it's brought in here as well to kind of clean it up if needed. Inside of Blender, we can go into its sculpting mode and kind of clean up some awkward bends with the smooth brush, like here. Did a kind of shitty job at doing that my first time around. Believe me, it was worse before. A few things were modeled from scratch for this revision. One of them being the microphone. I wanted an old school microphone. I don't know what they're called, even though I gathered references for them. I never got an actual name for them. One of the funnest things to model was the vocal apparatus, as I kept calling it, which kind of took a hit during the posing. But honestly, you can't even tell in the renders because I honestly had no idea this happened until just now. But yeah, it seems as we turned the head, we kind of went a little too sharp with the mask on the cables here. But let me show you what that looked like on its own. Oop, everything's hidden. Everything's hidden. Well, at least the cabling. We have the cabling here, and for the cables, I used the same method that I used for the hair. That's why the geometry is so damn dense, just like the hair. I used NURBS. So here are the NURBS. Instead of dense geometry, we have our control points again, and we can select them and adjust the cable however we want. To an extent, you'll see I used the same method on the cable for the microphone, and I kind of wanted it to like flow around her, but the more that I stretched or extended the control point, the weirder and thinner it got at some points and stretched out in others. So there's a limit. There's a limit to how far you can or how much you can adjust these things, but it's pretty cool. I also did a quick little scene here. The background piece here was inspired by one of their live sets. They had these cool lights that would turn on and alternate like that throughout the show. I thought it was pretty cool. It created some intense lighting in combination with those huge stage lights that they have. It created very, very intense lighting that I don't know. I wasn't too confident about trying to match that, but also I didn't want my lighting to be that intense. Let's see if I can find the image. So this is kind of what I was going for. Or like that. I didn't want this dark of a scene, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of the times when I render things, they come out really dark, and it's kind of because I like it, but in the industry, it's kind of implied, or not implied, for lack of a better word, though, implied that, you know, it's if your scenes are rendered very dark, it's because you're hiding bad work, bad geometry, bad texturing, whatever it is. but this is more of like mood lighting, and as cool as it is, I kind of wanted, I really didn't want mine to be all that dark. So that's Blender. A lot of UV, especially with the newly created assets, but also the adjusted assets. I think at one point I had to split the head from the body because the head wasn't getting enough texture space. So it was like really bad resolution on the texturing and stuff that we were getting, especially like the fine details. So we split the head and had to adjust the UVs for that, which in turn kind of screwed up my tattoo layout that I had going on in Photoshop. So I needed to adjust that as well. So with that, let's head over to Painter, where the bulk of the work was done. Okay. Inside of Substance, we'll try to make this quick because this project is very, very heavy on my computer. We did a lot in here. It doesn't seem like it, especially when I export, and there's not a whole lot to export. But we did enough in here to give my computer problems anytime I open this thing up. So if you guys want, I could do a full breakdown of everything we did in here, but for now I think I will focus on the non-destructive workflow that we do here, and that's basically just using fill layers. So like let's take this part, this neck piece for example. This entire part of it is just in its own group here. So let's take a look at this thing. So I have a background piece for it. I have the gear itself. So what this part is it's a smart material, I believe, and it comes with a lot of layers and sub layers that kind of give a really cool look here. Like you can see there's scratches on the metal, and you can adjust just how visible and how many of those scratches you have. But if I were to remove that mask, it would apply it everywhere. And that's why it's called a fill layer. It's just going to fill the entire UV space, and it's gonna apply that material everywhere. But that is why we mask it, and you can kind of see my mask here. That's kind of a quick thumbnail preview of what's going on in the UV space. We are painting this area white and everywhere else black, because with masks, that's how it works. If you want something to show up, you paint white on that mask and it becomes visible. If you paint black, it hides it, and you can kind of blend in between using grayscale values, and that's what makes masks so fucking powerful. And I do have, I believe, it's this one. I do have this layer where this kind of helped me get an outline for this mask, since it's just a flat blue color, nothing special to it at all. It's just a color value. It's a lot easier and quicker for my machine. Oop, we got a little bit of poking out there. Don't worry about that. Shut up. It's a lot easier to paint with this versus all of the detail that comes with this smart material. In this one, you're painting color, you're painting roughness, metalness, occlusion values, and anything else that it comes with. And especially if the model or if the project is at this state where it takes a minute to open up, auto saves are happening every few minutes. It can be pretty taxing on your machine to just be painting in this much value, if that makes sense. So I learned to just use these quick layers to figure out what my mask is going to look like, and then I can just right click and copy that mask and paint it or paste it into another layer. So it's not like we have to do that twice or anything. It also helped me with the emissives, which here we go. I was gonna say I'm having a hard time finding where the fuck they are, but in my earlier workflows, I kind of kept, or I was using emissive values with a color. So I kind of knew at some point I wanted to have a blue emissive versus my earlier renders. I was using all sorts of different colors. But at the end I decided I kind of want to have a neutral color inside of Painter, so that I could adjust them inside of Marmoset when rendering, so that they could all kind of look the same. I could use the same value in Marmoset, and they would all look like it matches. I could also do that here, but since it's split up between texture sets, it would have been more of a hassle to go into every emissive layer and copy the same I don't even know what you would call this alphanumerical code that represents the colors here. I would have had to go in and match that for every single layer of emissive detail, and there's plenty. There's plenty, especially when you get to the body. So I thought it'd be easier to just leave it all neutral and adjust them all at the same time as materials inside of Marmoset. And I'll show you guys that when we get to it. We'll make a quick stop at Photoshop just to show kind of what we did inside of here. So first was creating a ton of reference boards like this Cyberpunk one here, where I went to ArtStation and found some really cool work, and I just grabbed bits and pieces of things to kind of help me move forward, like the detail lines here from this dude's body, the cybernetic parts from the arm. I kind of followed the breaking of the wrist here. I would have loved to do something like this, but I think that would have taken too much time. I kind of wanted to do something the spine like this. Not so much the cabling underneath, though. That would have been pretty cool. But I just didn't have the sculpted surface for this kind of work, so maybe in a future project. But I remember specifically gaining inspiration for the vocal apparatus from this part of the back of this dude's head. Like the overall shape of whatever this is, and then the cabling or tubing in between. That was a huge inspiration for the vocal apparatus that I ended up making. Like I mentioned, the tattoos needed to be fixed. This has to be an old version. Or actually, no. Okay. I know what's going on. So, we still have the head in this UV set, even though we didn't end up using the head. I think what I did was when I split it, I kept everything else the same, which kind of was bad because I left this big negative space here once the head is gone. But I did that because I didn't want to have to go and adjust these things again. So I kind of just left it as it was, and you can see here are the arms, here are the tattoos on her arms. There's the little triangle on her thumb. This bit of the tattoo I kind of replaced with an emissive mark because this part ended up landing on the metal part of her torso. So instead of just getting rid of it, I just kind of made it in like an emissive tattoo on the metal part of the body. Here is the template for the eyelashes. You can see it's very, very simple geometry and very quick brush strokes. These strokes were created using a combination of the pen tool and the brush tool. Basically, you make a line with the pen tool and you use the parameters of your brush to kind of get like this fading brush stroke that follows the path of your pen tool. It's pretty cool, but it is a little time consuming. So you kind of make a few that kind of have a bit of variety to them in their shape, and then you just go and duplicate the motherfuckers, else you'll be here for a good chunk of your afternoon or evening or morning, depending on when the fuck you decide to do this type of shit. This is the texture I made for the floor, the scene that I showed you in Blender. I've been watching Demon Slayer with my little brother, and I used the pattern on Nezuko's kimono because I thought that was really cool. And then I think at one point during one of the transition scenes, they took her pattern and just spread it all across the scene in that nice like pink with white line look. And I thought that looked really fucking cool. I don't think it matches or looks the same because we are missing, as you can faintly see, the lines in between. So it doesn't look exactly like it, but that might just be for the best. Also inside of Photoshop, I did some touch up on the renders. It's not something I did a lot of when I was in class or when I was in school, and I still don't do a lot of it, but I might start because this is actually pretty fucking fun. So one of the first things I did was this glow enhancement layer. So we have glowing bits, but if I really want them to show in the render, I'd have to crank up the bloom volume in Marmoset to render. But that causes everything with any kind of reflectivity to really, how do I say it, to just blow up with light. It's ridiculous. So instead, I left it kind of calm and chill. And inside of Photoshop, I went over and just kind of started painting in the parts that glow. And I used the outer glow effect in the layer styles to kind of bump it up a little bit. You can get as crazy or as subtle as you want. It's a lot more control inside of here. So this is a bit of an older render. You can see there's you'll see in Marmoset there's emissive little connectors inside of the circuit board material here on her scalp. And yeah, I do a little bit of background work, foreground work, and yeah, I think these are the type of renders that I'll be uploading to Instagram and fucking eventually Twitter. I don't use the Twitter at all. I should probably start using that. And this is where the magic happens, I guess. No, it's really cool when we get to this point in the project where we can just apply the materials inside of Marmoset, and I really get to see how it's all turning out. And in the later stages, rendering and setting up a scene can be one of the funnest parts of these projects. But if you guys remember the process for applying materials here from the Eve breakdown, it's exactly the same here. We're just taking the textures that we created in Substance and just applying them here. But I want to show you the emissive that I was talking about. So our emissive, all of our emissives that we spit out from Painter are white. They're a neutral color, allowing us to influence the color by setting a parameter here. So like I said, I wanted this blue color, so I just took this value and took it to the other material sets, and I can change their color that way. And if I ever wanted to, I could change the colors again very quickly. So let's do that. Instead of applying, I'm sorry, I have to hit Control-C a couple times, because one of the annoying things about Painter, or I'm sorry, about Marmoset, is that sometimes that doesn't carry over as easily as it should. But there we go. We've changed the emissive details on the body to be green as well. If we wanted to do this in Painter, I don't know, there's probably 3 or 4 different layers that control the emissive for the body. So to just do it by changing one value, it's so much better. We'll do it to the vocals as well. Control V, and now the emissives on our vocal apparatus are green as well. And we could always come in and increase or decrease the is our scene. For the floor, you can see I added a little bit of a, let's see if I can find it. I added a bit of detail using this detailed normal map. I found this guy online, and although I'm not sure what is the best, like, what is this supposed to be for? I don't fucking know, but it kind of helped make this not look so fucking flat. And what's cool about these is it's not just a normal map that relies on UVs, it's kind of like the more tileable texture. So we could increase the tiling and just have this thing look like almost like water. And we can also increase or decrease the weight. So we could either make it very, very visible or make it a little more subtle. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool stuff. But you can see we have our emissive, and that's all it is. There is no color information. It's just all a glow. And this is the opposite of what we did with the emissives on the character, where instead of relying on a neutral color so that we can change it here, you'll notice that we're using a neutral color here instead, because I wanted this blend between this pinkish light and a blue light. And so I kept that instead of using a neutral color. But you can see if you change this, it still influences it, which can yield some pretty cool results. But for the most part, I want to depend on the emissive created inside of Photoshop. I want this blend between the two colors because that's what I'm rendering with. You can see I have a blue spotlight here. Please. A blue spotlight here and a pinkish one on the other side. There it is. Because the main light also is a little pinkish, and so is the backlight. Yeah, I need to work on my lighting. But basically, it's the same. It's the same as with Eve. To set up multiple different cameras and render them all out. In some cases, like here, we would have to move the scene around so that you don't have half of it just going away at some point. So I would probably do something like that, or just take this entire part and rotate it. That's probably more accurate. Or we could always render with transparency. That's probably what I did here. Not video, but image. Render with transparency. Just check that guy on, and we won't see any of this. And that allows me to insert my own background, as you saw with some of the renders inside of Photoshop. That's gonna do it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for hanging out. I'm having a lot of fun making these type of videos. I'm learning a lot, and it's just helping me get more comfortable and more prepared for things in the future. So I hope you guys like these. And if not, it's not going to turn into the main focus of the channel. So don't worry about that. We still will be doing Phasmo gameplay using VODs from Twitch. I think from here on we'll be doing new playthroughs with the new maps, which I'm really loving. The new asylum is it's so fucking cool. It's so crazy. But I'll leave you guys here before this video gets too long. Thank you again for watching, and hopefully you guys have a good night.